of Tech live on Twitch. It's been a while since we streamed over here. Last time I was live was on YouTube, where we unboxed this bad boy, which I now used over the weekend. And I've got some thoughts. And because you guys are some of the more loyal fans who are following over on Twitch, you get to hear them early. But if you're the type of person who's watching this right now and also plans on watching my YouTube video talking about 12 Pro first impressions, you're going to hear a lot of repeats. So if you're watching today's stream, you might want to skip tomorrow's video because that's what a lot of it is going to be. But I figured this one might be more interesting because we can have a live, Q&A. Basically, people can ask about it or ask about whatever you want, really. It doesn't have to be 12 Pro exclusive. But for those who can't stick around for the whole stream, I will also make a edited, condensed down impressions video. And then a few weeks, a week, or just a little bit over a week after that, I'll do my full review. Normally, I would do like a day one impressions, but Saturday was really, really busy for me. I was working on my roof and had to do a bunch of chores around the house and that kind of thing. So that's why there was no content published on Saturday. But yeah, I really like it. I do. I don't think you should buy it, which I figured for a review might be a great title because it would throw off a lot of people. It started off with, this is the first iPhone I can't recommend to anyone. But it's mainly because, obviously, there's other 12s in the lineup that I can recommend. I just decided that 12 Pro, out of all the lineup, is worth it the least, by far. Out of everything I could justify. Like 12 Pro Max is great for those of you who want biggest iPhone, best iPhone with all the greatest battery, the greatest camera. 12 Pro Max is like no compromises. You just want the best iPhone possible. The regular iPhone 12, also really good, fairly priced. I think you get a lot out of it. The cameras are great. The display is great. $829 unlocked. And 12 mini, I would almost recommend to most people because I would say you get the benefits of the Super Retina XDR, you get the great camera, but at the same time, you get it at a much more reasonable starting price. And I know a lot of people that are very, very comfortable with the smaller form factor, which is why it's been fun having the old iPhone 5 out on the desk to compare this to. It is sometimes really amazing how close these two are. Like the width of them, the height this way. That's depth, right? I was trying to think of the right word. The depth is almost exactly the same. Obviously, they both use Lightning, and I'm very excited to try out the 12 mini, personally. In case you were wondering if I would come to some kind of great realizations about the 6.1-inch form factor, no, I'm still convinced I either want to go bigger or smaller than this. I'm not happy with just this in itself. So I'm not keeping this. No, my opinions has not changed. But the squared off edges actually are a bit uncomfortable initially, I guess. At least I still notice it when picking up my old 11 Pro Max. Why do you feel the need to text me over and over? Okay, sorry. Picking this up, the rounded edges feel a bit more comfortable in the hand than the squared off ones do, though I've seen it's probably very subjective because I have seen people say the opposite. I've seen a few people say they prefer the feel of the squared off look. I prefer the look of the squared off design mainly because I can stand it up on a table, which is really cool, which is nice for B-roll. And also, I found myself admiring the design of it a lot, which is bizarre because excuse me, functionally, the squared off design doesn't really do very much for you. It's not like it's a feature, but I kept using my phone, and I used it actually quite a bit over the weekend. There was a lot of downtime after we worked on the roof. I was playing games on it. I was watching videos on it. I was texting and browsing the web and doing all my finance and stuff. So I have completely switched over. This was just now is the first time I've picked up my 11 Pro Max since I got this initially. And don't worry, I don't have COVID. I coughed because I just had one of those Nature Valley peanut butter granola bars, and I ate it kind of quickly, and I didn't. Some of it was stuck in my throat. Thank you, Cyber Octoling. Michael, thank you for the 25 months of Twitch Prime. He's a quarter of the way to 100. We've got a little while before that, but thank you for the Twitch Prime. Yes, it does help with YouTuber B-roll, but I was trying to figure out as I was using it Why exactly do I like this so much? I mean, comfort-wise, it's kind of a downgrade, I would say. It kinda cuts into the hand a little bit more, and, when you're swiping up to go home, which you do a lot with this type of design, or swiping up for multitasking, I felt like it cuts into my finger a bit more than my old iPhone 11 did. So why do I like this though? You know, it's like, and I think what it is that I'm not sure. I haven't watched a bunch of reviews on it because I do tech videos for a living, so I just don't, in general, watch a lot of tech videos. I don't know if someone else has brought this up, but I think I figured it out. The reason it looks so good is because the glass is perfectly flat. That's one thing. And that also allows for less reflections on the edges. And when you have a rounded off, probably a lot of you right now are using a rounded off iPhone, and the glass is curved off on the edges, that collects and reflects a lot more light towards you. So in a way, it looks like more busy, and it's collecting a lot more light particles, whereas the squared off design, holding it straight towards you, it does not pick up as much reflections. It's not as glossy basically around the bezel. And because of that more flat approach to the bezel, for one, it's thinner. It's not substantially thinner, but it is a little bit noticeably thinner. Um, Simply because it's not reflective and the glass goes right to the steel instead of kind of bleeding over the edge and then the steel rounds off a little bit. I think that squared off design just gives it a cleaner, more minimal look to the front, which is what I like about it so much because, obviously this was my first phone, the iPhone 5, and I loved it. I thought it was amazing. It was like the perfect phone for me when I first got it, except back then I was already talking about removing the headphone jack. I was ahead of the times. And I didn't have really anything. I wasn't one of those like diehard squared off edge, like this is the best iPhone design. I remember people making concepts a few years ago of like, what if they went back to the squared off thing? And I was kind of like, they don't really need to. But now using it again, I'm starting to realize like, okay, that is the benefit, especially when you're trying to do an edge to edge display. Not having the glass pick up all those added reflections along the edges and being rounded off, that's what allows you to get a much cleaner, more simple look, which is why I enjoy it because it's familiar. It's still iPhone. You look at it and it still feels and looks like an iPhone, and yet at the same time has a fresh and more modern, simplistic look to it. So I'm almost very curious to what it would be like if they made the front of it flat and the back of it more rounded off, which is kind of what they did with the iPod Touch, fourth or fifth gen. Yeah, they have kind of flat glass on the front and then rounded off on the back. In my opinion, that would maybe I haven't held one before. I haven't held a phone like that, but maybe that would allow for comfortable feeling in the hand while still retaining that minimal clean look. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the design. Feature wise, I will admit that it's definitely not packed this year when it comes to actual usable, noticeable feature improvements because, really you set it up, you start using it, and you're just like, okay, it's my phone now. It's same old Face ID. Cameras are enhanced, but I can't really say that's that big a difference going from an 11 Pro Max to the 12 Pro. You know something I realized? The 12 Pro has an exclusive telephoto lens this year. Like no other iPhone 12 has this telephoto lens because the 12 Pro Max has something better, and I'll reserve judgment for that because it has bigger sensors and it's got kind of a whole different camera system on the 12 Pro Max, which I may have different opinions on, but at least my initial impressions with taking night mode shots on the ultra wide and on the front facing camera, they're not that great. I mean, I'm sure they're better than before, but the ultra wide camera, the running issue with it last year was that it wasn't as sharp. It was a little soft and it felt a little bit more compressed with the ultra wide camera. And it didn't change this year. It pretty much looks the same when it comes to the ultra wide performance. And when you do night mode in general is very noisy, on the image, and it's kind of very blurry and pixelated, but you're able to pull a lot of color and a lot of light out of situations that are very dark. But when you combine the ultra wide lens, which is already soft and not very sharp, and you give it night mode, which is known for being noisy and kind of blurring. Um, the night mode ultra wide shots are not that impressive to me. I'm sure it's an upgrade from last year, but I take a picture with it and I'm like, I don't think I would ever use that. LiDAR. Oh my God. Can I attest to LiDAR being the most gimmicky, dumb thing? Like, I'm sorry. That's why I cannot recommend the 12 Pro to anyone because, for one, we're all about low light, right? That's what this year is all about. Is like the better camera for low light. You got to have low light. You want to get better low light photos. The amount of times that they didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they updated the telephoto lens this year. I'm pretty sure the 12 Pro telephoto lens, 12 Pro Max, different story, but the 6.1 inch 12 Pro, this is the same exact telephoto lens we've had for years. And if you're in a situation where the standard lens, the normal wide angle, can see the room better, when you punch in and you press that 2x button, it will default to just a digital crop. It's not an actual optical zoom. It's just a digital crop in. And there are many, many situations where it will not even utilize the telephoto lens at all because obviously they improved the low light on the standard lens, which is now a f1.6 aperture, which means that in any situation that the regular lens has better low light, which is a lot now because of that better focal length, it will just not utilize the telephoto lens. It will just digitally zoom in, and I put my finger over the telephoto, or whichever of these two it is. I think it's this one, actually. I'll put it over the telephoto to see if it's working, and no, they're just digital zooming on this. And those are the two biggest functional benefits of going with the Pro, is LiDAR and telephoto. LiDAR is not that good, even for the AR demo stuff. I mean, you can do AR demos on single lens phones, like the iPhone SE can do those AR demos. LiDAR is just a little bit better at analyzing the room and tracking the object in. Thank you for the bits, Wixo Melody. No message, but appreciate the donation. And the telephoto lens does not even get utilized in a ton of different lighting environments, particularly low light, which is kind of the whole point of the 12 cameras this year, is that it's all pushing low light, HDR, and that kind of thing. So that's why after using it, I have no clue why or who needs to justify spending an extra $120 to $200 because it depends. You have the 64 gig option on the 12, so you can save a lot of money on the 12 if you go with 64 gigs. But if you want a more apples to apples comparison, 128 gig 12 is still $130. I think it's close to it. Yeah, it's $130 cheaper than this. So you really are paying for the colors and finishes, in my opinion. That's the one thing I guess you can't get on the 12 is the steel and the frosted glass. Yeah, an apples to apples comparison. Thank you. That's a better terminology. How's the durability on the stainless steel? I've noticed some people aren't having great experiences. I am not. I take very good care of my devices, so I don't drop anything, and I don't put my phone in my pocket with my keys. Oh my God, I saw so many YouTubers doing that. I'm like, you did what? You were like, yeah, sometimes I throw my keys and my phone in the same pocket. I'm like, of course it's going to scratch. Why would you do that? Some people are saying that it's more scratch prone, but from the durability tests I've seen, scratch wise, it's about as durable as last year. It's just more shatter prone because of the ceramic infused. So it's less likely to shatter, but it's just as likely to scratch as previous generations, which I didn't have any issues with the 11. I guess some people did. If you're the type of person to throw your phone in with your keys, or you're the type of person to drop your phone a lot, obviously get a screen protector, get a case. That's not different in prior years. It's not different this year. I've never used screen protectors or cases, and no durability problems, but I will admit stainless steel on Pacific Blue picks up fingerprints like crazy, and I constantly found myself like wiping it down just because I wanted it to look clean. But then after 1 minute of use, it's just instant. If you wanted to lift fingerprints off of someone's phone, the stainless steel would be a great way to do it because you've got that flat edge, and I can literally just tap it and it gets a perfect print. I don't even have to push very hard. And it doesn't even matter if I'm sweaty or not. Even when I'm not sweaty, it's just the steel is a fingerprint magnet, and I've complained about that before. Like I hate that between the pros and the regular iPhones, you got to have fingerprints on either the side or the back. You have to decide if you want fingerprints here or here. You can't have neither. I would love it if they did. I don't need it to be steel, honestly. I like the frosted glass. This does not collect fingerprints very easily. And if they could give me frosted glass with aluminum edges, it would be the most anti-fingerprint phone ever. That would be awesome. Let's see. Is the Pacific Blue more greenish or more blue that there are so many photos? I don't really know what it's going to look like. Yeah, the annoying thing about Pacific Blue, also, I've decided if I go with the 12 Pro Max, I'm definitely not getting Pacific Blue. I don't like this color. Obviously, colors are very subjective, and if you like it, that's great. I'm happy for you. But personally, if you're in a darker situation, this will just straight up look gray. It doesn't even look blue in a lot of lighting conditions, and it'll often look just black and gray in others. But if you hold a lot of light towards it, it'll look more blue. And yeah, in different lighting environments, it'll start to turn more green. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't like finishes that are like sometimes it's black, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's green. It just depends on the lighting. I would rather just have a full-on, like, if it's gonna be blue, go blue. I want it to look blue in every lighting condition, even in darker environments. I want it to look blue. Or if you're going to go white, go white. You see white in the dark, you see white in the daytime. It's just consistent colors, product red. I don't want pinkish. I don't want salmon. I want it to be hard, iPhone XR looking product red. I prefer, that's just my taste, but some people like the more muted colors. I've seen a lot of people say they love Pacific Blue, but what I can tell you, holding it here in person, this wallpaper they put on the packaging, this blue on the display does not match the blue of the phone, okay? Same with the website. The blue on the website does not look like the blue in person at all. It's way off. I guess I'm getting the graphite. Yeah, I'm getting graphite too. I think I've had silver for the past 2 years, so I'm kind of done with it. Before it matched my watch, but now I went with product red, so... but I don't want to get the pinkish 12 mini, so I don't think I'm gonna get a red iPhone this year. So I think I'm just gonna go back to graphite because it's simple, and gold looks too much like jewelry. I don't want a phone that looks like jewelry. But yeah, I would have absolutely picked up a red 12 Pro Max, unless it was like the really, really dark, deep red that's like barely noticeable. I'm not about that, but it sucks that the telephoto hasn't improved. That's literally the only thing that makes me want a Pro model to get closer when I can't. Yeah, I mean, not to say the telephoto is completely useless. I will admit I've been in a few situations, not this weekend, but I've been in a few situations over the course of owning iPhones with telephoto lenses, which started with the 7 Plus and then all the way up till now. There have been a few situations where I was outside in a very well-lit environment, and the telephoto lens, was helpful and probably collected more detail than a just typical digital zoom. But I would not put a $100 price tag on the lens alone. Sorry, I wouldn't. 12 Pro Max is a different story. We've got a deeper zoom for one. It's a 2.5x, and I believe it's a different sensor as well. Ultra wide lens is using a different sensor with larger pixels as a whole. So, yeah, I think. Yeah, I think 12 Pro is a very, very hard sell. And yes, everyone is correct. I'm pretty confident that from the beginning, Apple wanted the Pros to have 120 hertz. That was the plan initially, but they could not get the supply chains to supply them at a high enough yield. I hate people that keep saying, why did Apple choose 5G over 120 hertz? That's not what happened. I'm sorry. That's definitely not what happened. 5G was not up for debate. That was well known months before mass production started. Intel folded on the modem business, so there was no way Apple could stick with 4G Intel modems. And Qualcomm was the only other modem supplier that could meet Apple's volume of iPhones, and Qualcomm, just like everybody else this year, is forcing 5G modems on every smartphone, whether it be Samsung or OnePlus. They're like, nope, if you want to be in the US, you got to buy our modems and you got to buy the 5G ones. So 5G was never up for debate. These iPhones in 2020 absolutely had to have 5G. There was no debate on that. 120 hertz, I'm sure, was wanted. It would make a lot more sense for Apple to release a phone like this if it did have 120 hertz and the regular 12 didn't. That would have been a lot easier. It would have been like, okay, there's a pro feature that's noticeable that catches up with other Androids, and that's a very, very noticeable, at least to the pro market. To the average consumer, no, they won't notice, but the average consumer isn't going to care about telephoto or LiDAR either. So that's my point. If it's oriented towards the pros and it's going to be priced at $1,000, sure, 120 hertz would have made a ton of sense. But they couldn't get them at high enough volume and at good enough yield. So it sounds like that was meant to separate the 12s from the 12 Pros, and it didn't work out. So now the 12 Pro is just a look cell with some software locks. You know what? I wouldn't be shocked by this. I guess we'll never know because there's no way to really prove this. I feel like they were going to have 128 gigs across the entire lineup, even on the 12 mini and 12. But then once they started realizing that they couldn't get 120 hertz to work, then they decided, okay, actually, let's give the 12 and 12 mini 64 gigs and then the Pro 128 gigs. That way there's just at least something to differentiate them a little bit. Because I know, supply chain wise, the difference between a 64 gig SSD and a 128 gig SSD is minuscule. That it's next to nothing. I mean, that's why phones like the Pixel 4a at $350 can rock a 128 gig SSD, is because in the smartphone world these days it costs almost nothing. But maybe they realized they couldn't have that promotion feature, so they're like, maybe we should keep 64 gig around another year just in case we want the pros to have something a little bit more oomph. I don't think the extra RAM makes a big difference, honestly. I have used a phone with 4 gigs of RAM for a long time, and now I'm using a phone with 6 gigs of RAM, and I don't notice a difference in multitasking at all, frankly. Similar to the iPad Pro, 4 gigs of RAM versus 6 gigs of RAM, and that's a device that actually has split screen multitasking, and you do like video exporting and that kind of thing on it. I didn't notice a big difference there. It's like a fun tech spec difference, but it doesn't. I mean, there's a reason Apple doesn't list their RAM on the website. If it was an actual noticeable selling improvement to the Pro for having 6 gigs of RAM, they would have brought that up on the compare page. Because obviously it's in Apple's best interest for you to spend more money on your iPhone, because there's probably a lot healthier profit margins on the higher end phones. So they would list it if it was a big deal. They would list it if it made a difference. They would say, this one has better multitasking capability because it has extra RAM and that kind of thing. And they don't. They don't bring that up. The only difference I think it allows for is the 60 FPS extended Dolby Vision HDR, which is kind of weird. I do notice it, I'll be honest. I've recorded a few videos on the 12 Pro, and HDR is weird. It's kind of like... I know they never put RAM though, but if they wanted to list it as a different selling point, they would, because they want you to get the Pro. Obviously, it's in their best interest, and if they're not even bringing it up, it's because it doesn't make that big a difference, unless you're doing some type of everything Apple Pro speed test where you close all the apps and then open them all again, and maybe the 12 Pro is a little bit better than the 12 in that regard. But in day-to-day use, I promise you, it doesn't make a difference. 4 versus 6 gigs of RAM. With how iOS manages RAM, it's not a night and day. No, I'm sorry. 2 gigs of RAM, LiDAR, telephoto lens, all that stuff, stainless steel, does not warrant an extra $120. I'm sorry. I can't justify it. And I honestly can't think of anybody, unless you're just a real diehard I need stainless steel person, which I would say question your financial spending if that's your motivation behind getting the 12 Pro. I just need the steel. Like, if that's it, yeah, I would just say don't do it for that, because also keep in mind, these phones are coming very late in the year, especially if you guys are thinking about getting a 12 mini or a 12 Pro Max. Those are dropping mid-November, and it's very likely next year Apple might release new iPhones in September. So we're talking about an iPhone, if you're the type of person to upgrade every year, 10 months of ownership. It's not even a year for a lot of these phones. 12 Pro, I probably well, I'm returning this one, but even the 12 Pro Max or the 12 Mini, I'll probably only end up keeping for 10 months because then I got to switch to something else in September of 21. Is it worth it to upgrade from an iPhone XR to the 12? Worth is subjective. It's just an impossible question. I would just say, don't if you're on the fence, don't feel like you need to upgrade. Okay, especially this time of year in this climate, where the economy is so questionable, and I don't know what your financial situation is. That's why it's impossible for me to just give an objective statement that just covers everything. But what I would say, if there's any of you out there still thinking about the 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max, obviously there's the techies of you out there that are going to upgrade every year no matter what. But I would say if you're on the fence, the only people who should upgrade are those who are still using LCD displays. If you're on an OLED iPhone, I wouldn't push you to upgrade to the 12. And honestly, I wouldn't push anyone to upgrade to the 12. If they're happy with what they have, honestly, I think the 10R is still great. I think the 10R is fine. And if I was still using a 10R to this day and I was in a financial situation that wasn't great, I would probably not upgrade to the 12 because I admire the updated design, and I'm a nerd and I take a lot of videos, so I'm very interested in like the HDR mode, which you can do on the 12 as well. It's just not at the full 4K 60, but most people aren't going to film at that res anyway. But yeah, it's weird because I noticed the display maxing out the brightness whenever you get an HDR video, which before was exclusive to, when you open TV Plus, you would get HDR playback. But now you can record videos at that high dynamic range. And when I open it in the Photos app, I notice it. If I select the HDR video, the brightness of the display goes and it like turns itself up, but it's only on the video. It's not on. Let me see if I can demonstrate this. It's going to be like next to impossible. Let me find a good one. Okay, so like normal portrait mode photo, right? But then when I swipe over to a video, the video aspect, like the white sides of the video, the brightness stays the same, but the video aspect jumps up to that 1200 nits that they talk about for like HDR content. So it's noticeable on this display, but as YouTubers has talked about, the reason a lot of people are calling it proprietary, I know it may not exactly be proprietary, is that you can't really put it onto a computer and view it. Like you have to be viewing it on a Dolby Vision display, which is not very common. It's not that normal of a thing. And even on a TV, how are you getting it on the TV? Are you going to AirPlay it? Or are you going to... I mean, you can't export it, upload it to YouTube, and have the HDR tag next to it. So... yeah, it's kind of closed box cool, but it is somewhat neat. But it's very, very techie thing. It's a very, very pro user thing. I don't think non-techies are going to care about the HDR stuff. Let's see. I own the iPhone 11. I might get the 12 mini because I do want night mode for all lenses plus OLED, HDR, smaller size. There's enough new stuff to like. Yeah, it's all that's what's the impossible thing about the is it worth it or should I upgrade, is because there's so many variables to that question. There's so many things that, if I think of someone like my parents, like my mom is using my old iPhone 10, someone like her is not going to care about the 12. She has no reason to upgrade. She uses her phone for email, texting, banking, all the basics, and there's nothing the 12 is going to offer her that she really cares about. But if you do want, I will advise you though that if your main deciding factor is night mode on the ultra wide, it's not that great. It's still very blurry, it's still very pixelated, and night mode is making that worse. So like a night mode photo I took last night with the ultra wide, I'm just like, I feel like it'd almost be better to just use the flash at this point. Let's see. Do you think durability will be better? I honestly use no case. I know I'm crazy, and I have had the 10R and demolished it with a drop, and the aluminum got series dense. Well, if you're dropping your 10R with no case, the steel isn't really going to do much better. If it's getting scuffed up and dense, your steel is going to get tons of scratches, and I don't know, it might not dent, but the drops will be noticeable if you're not using a case, sure. Yeah, my dad's getting the 11 Pro Max. What about the front-facing camera? How's night mode for that one? Here's the thing about night mode. I complained about this a few years back. I still think night mode is cool, but I do also think that the addition of night mode makes people forget that they have a flash. In a lot of situations, I've seen the flash actually perform better than night mode, but usually it's when you're in a smaller, like the subject is closer to the camera and you activate the flash, you can typically get more detail and less blurriness compared to night mode like you could. But night mode, there are certain situations where the flash isn't bright enough to light up the entire scene, and that's when flash is good. The problem is if you're taking a photo with the front-facing camera, you can utilize like that full display flash where the whole screen lights up and then takes a photo. And that typically, in my experience at least, is going to get you a brighter, more better looking photo than the night mode, because the night mode is obviously like boosting up the compression and boosting up the noise and doing AI tricks to pull color out of it. And it's not very crisp and it's not very detailed. So it's better. I'll give it that. Like, it's better than no night mode. It's an improvement. I was just doing it last night. I was trying out the night mode on the front facing, but I will still say it's like, I mean, it's better than nothing. Like this, for example, is a night mode front facing shot. And I know you probably can't see the detail on it, but it's like, yeah, it's definitely good. Like, this camera can see in the dark better than I can. It's kind of hard to demonstrate night mode photography because you don't realize, like, this was almost a pitch black, like you could not see anything in that room. Yet when I took the photo, it's like, okay, cool. It has a lot of color, but not very rich in detail, very blurry. Here's a screen recording I took of like, it's kind of a good example. Look at night mode when you're on the main lens versus when you go to ultra wide. Like, it gets really, really dark because obviously ultra wide isn't as good. So when you do take a night mode shot, it loses a lot of detail, obviously. So nothing I would say is objectively like you need to upgrade this year. Obviously, I would recommend the 12 to people who haven't upgraded their phones in a while. People who are on the 7 or 8 or earlier, I think would notice a lot with the 12. But anyone with Face ID is still not going to notice, I think, huge amounts of changes with their daily usage of their phone. Let's see. Is better cam a reason to upgrade? Also, Marquez said that iPhone video is still the best. It's not an objective thing like, yes, camera is better, everyone must upgrade. Like, it's not that simple. If you take a lot of pictures and videos, sure. And if you care about HDR and low light photography, sure. But if you don't, then no. It obviously varies on the person. Like my mother, for example, should not get the 12. But if you really care about HDR and you take a lot of low light photos and you're on the iPhone 10, same phone as what my mom is using, then yeah, I would say, sure, the 12's got a lot of great features. Do you think that the 20 watt requirement for MagSafe to work is advertised kind of shady? It's not as shady as 5G. 5G is way more shady, in my opinion. Yeah, well, it's tricky because, I mean, most wireless chargers don't output the same amount depending on. What I'm saying is it's not an exclusive to Apple thing. This has been very, very common with wireless chargers. They all require certain bricks that are designed certain ways. OnePlus did the exact same thing with the 30 watt wireless charger. They were like, okay, it fast charges our phone, but it doesn't fast wirelessly charge anybody else's, and you have to use our cable and our brick for it to work. And RavPower also did the same thing. RavPower sent me wireless chargers that if you didn't use their specific brick, then it couldn't output at the right capacity. And if you tried to use a different, like they required like a 10 watt brick or something, but if you used a different third-party 10 watt, it wouldn't give you the full charge speed. So it's it's kind of weird. Yeah, I get it that you can't just use any brick you want and get any speed you want, but it's not exclusive to Apple. It's kind of just a common thing with the wireless charging industry. So I wouldn't pinpoint it on just Apple to be at fault here, but yeah, obviously. I've been using MagSafe with an 18-watt charge brick, and I think it's plenty fast. I've been using it every night. I have not plugged Lightning into this thing once. I've been exclusively MagSafe charging it, and I think it's very quick. It charges up very fast. It may not be the full 15 watt, but it's still 13 watt versus 15 watt is not a super noticeable. I don't think it's a huge deal. I don't think you'll notice like, oh, it's charging so slow versus 15 watt. It's like barely, it's like a rounding error. It's like the difference between using your brightness at 10% versus 90%. You know, it's like, sure, it might drain a little faster, but I don't think it's that big a deal. It's a very common thing in the wireless charging market to be like, gotta use this brick and this cable for it to work properly. And Apple's doing what everyone else is doing. So, yeah. Chris Norton, thank you for the 100 bits. I will stick to my 11 Pro. A phone's a phone. Yeah, see, Chris is like a lot of people out there. And I will admit, you know, I admire the design and I mess around with all the cool new features because I'm a tech YouTuber and I know I'm going to talk about them. But feature-wise, there were a lot of times this weekend where I just unlocked my phone and I was like, I guess I've tried everything. I was like, I've tried the LiDAR. I tried the HDR video. I tried the night mode. Here it is. This is it. I'm still texting. I'm still watching YouTube. It's the same pixel density. It's the same screen brightness. I mean, it's less of an upgrade if you're coming from the previous best iPhone. You know, if you're coming from an 11 Pro Max and going to a 12 Pro like I am, I'm like, okay, it's not a lot of changes. I'm still using my phone the same way. So I think it's really easy to get caught up in the marketing and to get caught up in all the YouTube videos and make people think, I need to upgrade. I need to get this phone. I need to get this. I need to get this. And it's just not going to make a big difference, honestly. You can go through all the new features in probably 5 minutes and then you're done. And you're like, okay, I did it. Everything's kind of nifty and interesting. But yeah, I would definitely not say there's any must-have upgrades or there's any you need this or people from this phone and older absolutely need to get the 12. I would still recommend the 10R to a ton of people. You know, if you're on the iPhone 7 or 8 or maybe earlier, maybe you're still on the 6S like my dad or the 6, like someone like that should get a 10R or an 11. You know, that's probably going to save them a lot of money. They'll enjoy it. They'll still get the biometrics improvements. They'll still get the gesture control. You know, I am not one to enforce the upgrade every year lifestyle on people. If you're that type of person, you don't need my advice. If you're that type of person, you're going to upgrade every year regardless. Or like Mike is on the iPhone upgrade program, for example. A lot of people are just like, nope, I want the latest one every year. I don't care how small the changes are. I'm just getting a new iPhone. That's part of my gig. But if you're talking like 3-year, 4-year upgrade cycles, then yeah, that makes more sense. Let's say LiDAR changed my life. I found out my dad has been lying this entire time about his height. The 18 watt only lets you get up to 13 watt. Apple's 61 watt only lets you get up to 10 watt. Even the 96 watt only lets you get up to 10 watt. The 20 watt is the only cable that gets 15 watt, even though Apple has bigger USB-C bricks. I know, but it's complicated because not all charge bricks are made the same way. We had this long debate about it in the Discord today because people were explaining that just because it's a higher wattage doesn't necessarily mean it works with the same throughput as the MagSafe charge puck. So it's the 20 watt brick is not just 2 watts larger. There's other features they put into that brick that the 96 watt brick doesn't have. It's complicated tech stuff, but the point is you can fast wirelessly charge your phone faster than before. Beforehand, you were capped out at 7.5 watts. And that was the fastest you could get. Thank you, Mike. Try to explain it to the chat. It's because the 20 watt supports 5 volt, 5 amps, and the other one doesn't, or 5 volt, 4 amps. Sorry. Mike, thank you for the 4 months of Twitch Prime. Appreciate that. If you're on the upgrade program, do you have to upgrade every year or can you skip? No, you don't have to. You can skip a year if you want to. You'll just own the. I think it takes 24 months for you to own the phone. So if you're on the upgrade program and you keep your phone for 24 months, then you officially own it. You can keep it after that. Um, let's see. Do you know anywhere you can get the iPad Pro from 2018? I can't find it anywhere. Probably Amazon or maybe Best Buy. I don't know. Amazon is the first place I would look. I'm thinking about trading in 10R for an 11 to get the dual cameras. It'll save me a lot of money, and I'll probably wait until the iPhone 14 to upgrade. You could. I would highly recommend selling your 10R because the trade-in values on the iPhones this year are terrible. Really, really bad. I wouldn't recommend anyone trade in their iPhone this year. I guess unless you're on the upgrade program, you're expecting that. But the way USB PD works is that chargers support various power profiles. MagSafe uses the 5-volt 4-amp profile, which is relatively new and is only supported by the 20-watt brick, hence why the others don't work. That's the probably oversimplified way of explaining it, but yeah. But it'd be one thing if Apple was the only company doing this, but that's the thing. They're not. Like, everybody's been doing this for years. So it's not that weird or crazy just because, I mean, it would be nice if Apple could be different and just be like, any brick can charge this at 15 watt, no problem. But it's not that simple, I guess. iPhone 11 is only a year old, and Apple won't even take it for half, just above a quarter. Yeah, it's awful. I noticed it because last year I did do a trade-in because I didn't think it was that bad. I wasn't interested in selling my 10s Max because I wanted to just get it over with, and it had some scratches on the screen, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be hard to sell because anytime I give this to someone, they're going to be like, hey, there's a bunch of scratches on it. So I was like, you know what? I'll just trade it in to get the 11 Pro Max, and the trade-in value was $600, which I thought was, it's not great. I probably, if it was in better condition, I probably could have sold it for more, but it wasn't in great condition. So I was like, trade-in's fine. So I got $600 off my 11 Pro Max, but this year they only want to offer me $500 for my 11 Pro Max, which was $1,100 last year. And I was like, man, 600 was already pretty low. 600 I would only justify if the phone was not in great shape and you'd have a hard time selling it. But now, no, I would not. I would not trade it in for 500. No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, trade-in is not supposed to be competitive with resale value because the company is not just buying your phone off you. They're going to either tear it down and recycle it, or they're going to refurbish it, which costs them money because they got to replace certain components and then sell it again. So they're not going to, trade-in is not meant to be very competitively priced. So yeah, that's why the trade-in value is supposed to be like a guaranteed, as long as your phone is, turning on and the buttons work and the glass isn't shattered, then you can guarantee you bring this in and we'll give you this much. Whereas selling it yourself takes a little bit of work on your part. You got to find somewhere to sell it. You got to either pay for shipping it or meet with someone or, put it up for sale for a certain price and then negotiate. So there's more work involved, but that's usually why you can get more money out of it. But I noticed the 12 gets kind of warm even with light use. I haven't noticed that. I think any phone will get warm with a certain amount of use, but I used it a lot this weekend and I never noticed it getting that warm. I'll probably get the Graphite 12 Pro Max. Let's see. Samsung is rumored to remove the charger and earphones from the next Samsung Galaxy. I saw Android Central's report on that, but I wouldn't say it's been decided yet. I'm sure they're talking about it, but I mean, this again, it's a headphone jack thing all over again. But also, Samsung didn't remove the headphone jack immediately. They took a little while before they did it. So I won't be shocked if Samsung includes the brick in headphones next year. But I won't be shocked if in maybe 2 or 3 years they start removing it. I'll be like, yep, told you. We thought this was going to happen, and then it happens. But yeah, it ages horribly. Arvin Me 95 says, do you think 64 gigs is okay for storage for the 12 or upgrade to 128? But then you get so close to the 12 Pro. Apple's making it so hard. Don't get the 12 Pro, Arvin. I'm sorry. You're not. $120 is not close to the 12 Pro, especially for what it has to offer. LiDAR and telephoto and steel and an extra 2 gigs of RAM are not $120 worth of improvement from my usage of the 12 Pro. I can confirm all of the most noticeable things about the 12 are present in the regular 12, not the 12 Pro. The telephoto and LiDAR are so gimmicky. They're so, not that useful in the first place. For one, the camera app by default will just not use the telephoto lens a lot of the time and will just default to digital zoom. And LiDAR isn't even that useful because LiDAR is like the biggest camera sensor they've ever added that doesn't do anything I've ever seen. I've never seen them add a, giant dedicated spot to the camera module that barely even makes a difference. Like, it's just the AR stuff. The low light autofocus is dumb. Like, I've seen several photos taken with low light portrait mode. Well, guess what? If you're taking a portrait mode shot, your subject is pretty close to the camera anyway, so you will get a better image if you just use the dang flash. Like, the night mode makes everything very grainy and noisy, and if you're close to your subject, which you have to be for portrait mode, then you could use the flash anyway and get a lot of light out of that instead. Like, in side-by-sides, Randy was sending me some photos, and I was like, yeah, I would take the one, I would just use the flash. I wouldn't use night mode portrait personally. Yeah. Most people were not using the earphones. There were many, many studies to support that. There were lots of polls and there were lots of statistics Apple was running, and they figured out most people were not using the included headphones, either because they already had them or they made the switch to wireless. Because AirPods are selling like crazy. People have wireless headphones, even like my dad and my mom, who are not very tech savvy people. There were a lot of people using wireless headphones already. And I knew a ton of people that said their Lightning earpods were still in their box, untouched. No, I think it was a good move. Makes more sense to get the 12, probably go for 128, as it's just a 50 to upgrade. Again, depends on what you use your phone for. Some people need more storage, some people don't. I know some people that can still get by with 32 gigs or 16 gigs of storage. I don't know how they do it, but, I take a lot of pictures and videos. Some people I've talked to say, like, I never use the camera for anything ever. They're out there. There's a lot of different use cases. There's some people that are like, I have never needed to take a photo or a video. That's just not what I do. They just care about the display, and that's it. So I get that. The earpods really were kind of useless. Yeah, I mean, after a while, initially, it makes sense when phones were just getting started. But yeah, now that we've been buying smartphones for this many years, it starts to get a little redundant. Like, okay, why are we going to keep including this every single year? Unless you're in France, of course. Let's see. The HomePod Mini comes with a 20-watt adapter? Yeah, but now your HomePod Mini won't work every time you plug it in with MagSafe. I don't know. That'd be an interesting test to see if you could plug the HomePod Mini into an 18-watt brick and get a charge off that, but I don't know. That'll be an interesting experiment, I guess. Most people don't care about the headphones and charger based off pre-orders. Yeah, that's for sure. Cool Story has a great point. Based on what analysts and rumors are saying, iPhone 12, which, keep in mind, is only half the lineup because it was only the 12 and the 12 Pro, whereas last year, the entire iPhone lineup was available on the same day. Pre-orders all started at the same time. They're saying that the 12 and 12 Pro saw more than double the pre-orders of last year's iPhones. So I don't think the charge brick and the headphones are making that big a difference in people's buying decision. If they want the new iPhone, they want the new iPhone. A $20 brick or $20 headphones isn't going to change that. I think 12 and 12 mini are probably going to end up selling much, much better than the iPhone 11 that came with a charge brick and headphones because people don't care. No one cares. Would you ever start making your videos in the wider aspect ratio? No. I have talked about this several times, but it's mainly because aspect ratios on phones are constantly changing. And it's actually worse if you start filming in the wider aspect ratio if you're using those phones that have different, Z Fold 2 has a different aspect ratio than the One Plus, and the S20 has a different aspect ratio than that. And when they have these little camera cutouts, I'll show you what I'm talking about. You get less options, basically. If you want my video to take up the full display, you can just punch in. But if you don't want a cutout and you just want the video without any intrusions, then I'll just mute this. You don't always have that choice. So the One Plus is a certain aspect ratio to the point that with the wider display, you don't have to deal with the camera cutout. But on the S20, you do have to deal with the camera cutout. Same with the Z Flip or the Z Fold 2, because they're so tall and hard to optimize for. No matter which way you hold the phone, there's little cutouts and that kind of thing. And my camera does not record at 16:9. My camera does not record at that 2:1 aspect ratio. It only records at 16:9. So the only thing I would be doing if I recorded at the wider aspect ratio is adding black bars. And to me, that's dumb. Most TVs are 16:9, and most monitors are 16:9. So I don't think my videos would just suddenly look more cinematic if I just started putting black bars on the top and bottom. I'm literally taking away content. I don't see how that makes it more immersive. So yeah, I don't see the point personally, because if you're trying to adopt to smartphone aspect ratios, you'll never stop. You're just going to keep changing over and over and over again. Yeah, even Apple sells $50 wireless headphones now. Those little Beats Sport, whatever they're called, Beats Flex. They have the W1 chip pairing method where the little white pop-up and everything, and they're like $50. And just there's a billion AirPods clones. There's like all these different options for wireless headphones now that it doesn't really make sense to keep including wired headphones. Let's see. 30% of Americans are planning to cut spending on their phone plans, but 40% of Americans are still planning to buy the new iPhone. Ironically confusing, yet it makes sense why this happens. Well, what are those studies? I don't understand how you can get an accurate data poll on that large of a market. Like they probably polled like 5,000 people for that study. Yeah, you can. There's cheaper headphones out there than AirPods, that's for sure. Let's see. I feel like when you're paying $1,100, you expect it to have a box full of a bunch of nice extras. Like my $700 S10e came with a more durable cable than the iPhone 12. Yeah, but it only gets half the support. A 15-watt power brick, AKG headphones, ear tips for them, and a USB-C to USB-A dongle, which has been very useful, and I even use with my MacBook. Don't get me wrong, it's nice. No one's arguing it's not nice to get free things. That's not the debate. I want to get less things for free. I want to have to pay for more things. It's that, what do we include with every box that is getting unutilized? That's where the discussion is coming in. Okay, it's one thing that, all right, little Jimmy is buying an iPhone and he wants it to come with a charge brick because he's never had an iPhone before, versus, is that most of iPhone buyers? Or are the majority of people buying the latest iPhone people that have 10 lightning cables sitting around the house, and they have AirPods, or they have Bose over-ear headphones, or they have some type of headphones they're already using? So do we really need to keep shipping these types of accessories that the end consumer ends up paying for? It costs Apple money to include those things. So by not having to include them and by slimming down packaging, one, it helps for the environment, and two, they can put that added cost back into the product. I keep trying to remind people that. Like, the past 3 years, the cheapest OLED iPhone was $1,000. Even in 2019. If you wanted OLED on an iPhone, you had to spend $1,000. Now you only have to spend $700 because of the 12 mini. It didn't just miraculously get cheaper. They had to cut corners and figure out, where do we invest where people care, and where do we stop investing where people don't care? And they looked at those headphones, and they looked at the charge bricks and said, I don't think very many people are utilizing that. Let's run the polls. Let's see what's going on. Let's find out. And it looked like, okay, vast majority of people aren't using the included accessories, so we're not going to keep including them. Sure, free stuff is nice, no denying that. but doesn't make sense to include it with every single person. No, it doesn't. That's wasteful. Now the only people buying charge bricks and the only people buying headphones are people that absolutely need them, which in itself is better for the environment because it instantly means if they're shipping a 20-watt brick, it's because you 100% need one, not because you ordered an iPhone and that instantly warrants a charge brick, because there's a lot of us who don't need an additional charge brick, especially if you're pre-ordering and buying the new iPhone this year, you know. Let's see. Apple should have given buyers the option to get a USB-C charge brick at a discounted price. They did. They lowered the USB-C charge brick by 30%. So you still have that option. They literally did that. It's just not on the giant checkout page. That's the difference. You can lose included headphones too, and then what do? You can you can get more, I guess. I'm trying to understand your message, Avnum. What makes you think you don't have the option to get the charge brick? They literally lowered the... What you're suggesting would have been worse, actually, because Apple lowered the price of the 20-watt brick for everybody, no matter if you're ordering an iPhone or not, whereas you're suggesting they should only discount the charge brick at checkout, which would, in my opinion, be worse than what actually happened. It used to be a $30 brick, now it's a $20 brick. For anybody, you don't have to order an iPhone to get the discounted price. So we should be charging more. Maybe included stuff for the Pro iPhone, since Pro users are more likely to take advantage of stuff like that. Nah, I think the Pro users are more likely to already have chargers and headphones. So you can flip that argument both ways. If you're a Pro and you're spending $1,000 or $1,100 on your iPhone, you can afford an extra $20, or you probably already have bought a fast charger, or you already have bought MagSafe, that kind of thing. I still think, out of all of the pitched ideas I've seen come forward with, I still think Apple's made the most sense. Yeah, Pro users are the ones that have bricks and cables and headphones everywhere. Pro users are the people upgrading every year, typically. No, I remember. iPhone came in a big box with a cable, a big wall adapter, a dock, and headphones with changeable ear tips, microfiber cleaning cloth, and a soft cushion that covered the iPhone. When the 3G came out, they removed the dock. When the 3GS came out, they removed the cloth. I do remember that, actually, and I didn't even get those. But, yeah, I do have an old original iPhone. Where is it? Somewhere. It's on the wall over there. Oh, it's behind me, I think. Yeah, that one. It's really tall. Look at this. This is I think it is. I could be wrong. I believe this is an original iPhone box. Look how thick they used to be. They used to pack these things full of stuff. But, you just kind of get used to it. You just get used to getting a charge brick and headphones every year, so you think that's the standard. But honestly, for a long time, they've been taking stuff out. This is how tall they used to be. It was huge. You just don't buy for the environment. Have you seen how much the packaging is with the 20-watt charger? Much more than just including it in one box? No, because not everyone is going to order a 20-watt charger. Less than 5% probably of people ordering the iPhone 12 are getting the charger. It's not more packaging. If you're able to slim down the packaging by this much, that means that the majority of people buying the new iPhone are only getting this much packaging instead of, twice as much as it used to be. And the only people ordering the 20-watt are people who absolutely need it. Not everyone. Most people won't order one because they'll just keep using their pre-existing Lightning or wireless charger. So it's not worse for the environment. The whole point is that it makes it more efficient for moving inventory. Yes, it's for making money, because if Apple just did environmental things that did not make them money, they would die, like any company. The key is not how do we burn through cash and lose money so that the environment's better, because in that aspect, you should just say, don't do anything, Humans are bad for the environment, so stop existing, If you didn't care about surviving and actually doing something. The genius is when you can profitably help the environment. That's what Tesla is doing. That's what Apple is doing. You're going to die if you just don't care about profits and only care about the environment. you're not going to be able to do very much because you won't have money. So Apple needs profit so that they can invest in renewable energy and invest in renewable transport and better environmental things like that. If you need it, buy it. If not, then don't worry about it. Yeah, they're not a charity, though they do give away a lot of stuff. That's for sure. But I don't look at it as it's not actually good for the environment because they have to ship the 20-watt brick in a box. Not to everyone. That's the difference. Yeah, we've been arguing about this for months, but people still miss the point. Feels like it's always an oversimplified argument people jump to. Well, now I have to buy the 20-watt brick. You don't have to. You can, however you've charged your phone for this phone, which came out how long ago now? 8 years? 7 years? If you could charge your iPhone 12 with the same cable that your 8-year-old phone came with. Okay? And if you have a wireless charger, because iPhones have had wireless charging for the past 3 years, you can continue to charge your 12 that way. There's never been more ways to charge an iPhone before. You have Lightning, you have MagSafe, you have Qi, you have so many options that have been established now. I'm sure not that many people have USB-C power bricks at home, but I know a lot of people who have Lightning. That's for sure. Yeah, most DSLRs don't come with lenses either. That's true. I still can't get over the fact that switching USB-C on the iPhone would have had a better impact than removing the brick. No, not really, because now all your Lightning accessories are useless. So that wouldn't have been a great argument either. I want it. I prefer USB-C, but I wouldn't argue that it's better for the environment for them to switch to USB-C. That's not true. Instantly makes all of our Lightning accessories, all of our Lightning cables that are very, very dominant, all of them now can't be used. That's a big contributor to e-waste. Maybe the long term, but not really the short term. Long term, Apple doesn't plan on switching to USB-C. That long term, they want to switch to portless everything. So that's why USB-C would not have been better for the long term, because if they're ditching the port in 2 or 3 years, then they would just get everybody on USB-C and then they would ditch it in the end anyway. So, yeah. I don't know. This subject is endless, I think. People are going to believe what they want to believe. I can argue about it as much as I want, but some people are just not going to change their mind. And I'm in that camp too. I'm probably not going to change my mind on it either, but I was presented, I thought, reasonable arguments from Apple, and the way I see it, anything else they could have done would have been worse. Electric dryers don't come with a cord to plug them in. You got to buy it separately. Really? I've only bought used electric dryers, and they came with a cable. So, anywho, I got to get going, guys, but I appreciate the bits and Twitch Primes. EV video coming up. I just got to upload it. But thank you all for watching, and I'll keep you posted with 12 Pro thoughts later. Anyway, have a good day. Bye-bye.